Hello and welcome to Just Your Normal Misfit. I'm Ann Thomas, and today's conversation brings together two very different worlds: strategic communications and the journey of parenting a child with autism. My guest today is Rashmi Shetty. She's the founder and the CEO of Cohort Communicationz, which is a collective of seasoned experts building purpose-driven brand narrative. With over 2 decades of experience in PR, communications and brand management, Rashmi has shaped some of the stories of the world's biggest organizations. But beyond her professional achievements, Rashmi is also an autism advocate. She is a certified psychology counselor, and we will be asking her a lot about her journey and how her personal life has informed the way she sees empathy, credibility, and inclusion in storytelling. Today, in this episode, we'll talk about her experience as a parent, the myths around autism, the role of communication in building authentic narratives. We also want to understand from Rashmi the hidden disability sunflower. What is this powerful tool that we are seeing around invisible disabilities? And about everything else, the burning question that parents and caregivers of the differently abled have: what after us? Rashmi, thank you for being here. It's such a pleasure to have you. Before we start, I have the first question. Could you share what autism is in your own words for somebody to understand?
Put it very simply, and autism is a neurological condition which affects your communication and social skills, and it is a spectrum disorder. If people get these three key points, right? One, that it is a neurological condition. They're not crazy, it's not a mental condition. So it's your nerves which attach your brain to the other parts of your bodies. That is something that has been affected. Where you and I have highways, they have lanes, but they have roads. That is the first basic understanding. It's a neurological thing. And second, the fact that it's a condition, it's not a disease. You recently had some amazing world leaders talking about medicines that could cause it, that could solve it. And it's not a disease, it's a condition. If somebody is angry, you change the environment around it. You understand anger as a condition. You ensure that you don't say something that will anger them more. It's just that with autism. You have to figure out what is their environment, how can they really blossom. Each one of us has a capacity to blossom. So it's a neurological condition, not a disease. It is something that affects your communication and social skills. And I say this with deep understanding of these words because it doesn't mean that they can't communicate. They communicate differently. They communicate either non-verbally, through sign languages, through their body language. It makes you a more alert person when you're with somebody on the autism spectrum because you have to catch their way of communicating. They can communicate. Like I said, we have highways and they have lanes. So it's a bit slower, it's a bit different. Once you figure that out, you understand that they can communicate, but differently. Their social settings does not mean loud noises, a lot of people around. That affects them, that affects their systems. So we have to be mindful of that social setting that we offer them. And like I said, finally, it's a spectrum. So when you meet one person on the autism spectrum, you've just met one person on the autism spectrum. People who meet my son say, he's very peaceful, he's very nice. But that same boy, if he's put in a very difficult situation where there's a lot of noise and all, he starts whistling at a very, very high pitch, which could make you say, oh, they whistle like this. There is no analysis, no judgment, nothing. It's a spectrum. So there's nothing like being on the lower end, on the higher end. You're just on the spectrum and you've got to figure out how to manage it. So in a nutshell, Anne, if I have to put it, it's a neurological condition that affects your communication and social skills, and it's a spectrum disorder.
Uh, So you just mentioned highways and lanes, and that's the first time I'm coming across a very beautiful piece of narrative. I can literally imagine that I can move really fast here, and they have to navigate through so many different channels, and it's a very lovely description. How do I figure how to create a few conditions or spaces where they can thrive? Rather, how does a parent understand what lanes to take or create for them to make their lives a little more easier?
It's really a journey. Life itself, and I'm talking very philosophically, but it's really a journey, it's not a destination. So when you get the initial diagnosis, it is going to confuse you because we live in boxes. We're very clear. We're born, we go to school, we go to college, we marry, we have children, they have children, we die. When that box is now, it's changed. You've had a detour in your life. You're still going to reach your destination. It's just a small detour. It's something which you don't know how to handle. So I think the first thing that any parent, any new parent who's got the diagnosis should do is just cry. Just sit there and cry because that's loss. You feel it, cry. And I don't mean crying to family, friends, everybody. You're not seeking sympathy. Sympathy is another word that I completely dislike. I think it's just not there in my dictionary. Empathy is what you require, and you're not seeking sympathy, but just break down to understand not that your child is different, but you now don't know how to handle anything different because your life is in these boxes now. That box is not there. Once you've done that, now just sit and understand this is your child, comes from you, will have similar likes like you, maybe, will also be their own individual, maybe. Now, how do you now figure it out is just by observing. If you look at small children, right, they start first by copying parents. We quite often forget that step when you're looking at a person on the autism spectrum. If you go back to when they were children, maybe they were not copying that much. Maybe they were not following. So just start with the basics. There is absolutely, and this is my strong belief, there's nothing in this world that love can't conquer. And if you love, and of course you love your child, of course you love the fact that this beautiful creature is out here, you'll figure it out. A, trust yourself. Second, do the hard work because there are a lot of communities out there, and I'm happy to share my number with anybody who reaches out to you, and I can connect them with a lot of communities on autism and people who are there on the autism spectrum. They can learn about it, they can understand. There are a lot of therapists which are there are a lot of centers which are there. Go out there, get that information, and then figure out your route. But the essence of everything that you do with any child, this child itself, right, is wondering what is happening. Why is this world not going as per what I like? I'm not able to do. They are going through their inner turmoil. Now, let's not add to that. Let's take a step back, work first on ourselves, understand what help do we need. Do I need to connect with the community? Do I need to connect with centers? Do I even need to go to a psychiatrist? Because sometimes it breaks you so badly that you need to approach a psychiatrist. And I did that because I was very clear that I don't understand what's happening. And this is too new. My son is 20 today. So 17 years ago, there was no idea. So I took all of these steps. And once you've taken these steps, you will figure out what works for your child.
It's a really thoughtful way of putting it. And I was just thinking about two pieces that you have spoken about. One is the grief that you mentioned, and not grief very specifically because you have an autistic child or a child with autism. The grief is you had an expectation of a certain life which this child with autism may not, or child with neurodivergence may not fit into. So the grief is about that, and to allow yourself to feel it and to allow yourself to hold yourself through that piece is very important, because sometimes we can also be, am I judging myself because I thought I was such an open minded human being, but the moment I have a different reality, look at me. So you don't know who you are till you're put into a situation. And I love that piece where you say that there is going to be grief and you don't know what that grief is going to be about. And we always think about grief in death or loss, and the grief that we feel across our loss of expectations, you having to take a break from your career at some point because you wanted a different life. You thought you could handle so many things, but at some point you allowing yourself to say, I'm exhausted and I need a break and I need to figure these boxes out. So I love that piece about grief. Thank you so much for saying that. And you also mentioned, Rashmi, about the words high functioning and low functioning. How irritating is it when people say that this is a high functioning child and this is a low functioning child? And how better can we say these things?
I think it comes, the first thing that I'm really happy about this podcast is the fact that you're creating awareness. That is something we need to do. We've come a long way. We've still got a long way to go. People are not really aware. And that awareness, again, we like boxes. We like putting things in boxes. So we say it's a spectrum. So somebody will be high functioning, it'll be low functioning. It makes our life easier to understand. My son is somebody who's very peaceful, very gentle, very quiet, and he will take a lot of time to pick up something as compared to his close friend who's extremely hyper and picks up anything in precisely 5 minutes. So who's high, who's low? It just doesn't make any sense. We're just built with different qualities. And this is not just for people on the autism spectrum. If you're looking at the neurotypical people also, we just have qualities. That's all we have to. Nobody is better than the other. Nobody is worse than the other. It's a spectrum. So you've got to figure out, why do you need to figure out where your child stays? Is because you can figure out the future. For example, where I was clear that my son will not be able to go through regular schooling, I didn't put him through regular schooling. I found out different alternatives to get him that education that he required. But if you feel your child can go to an inclusive school, can go to a school there and can learn, please go ahead and do that. But if that is causing him stress, which causes behavioral issues, you rather pull them out, because life is a marathon, it's not a sprint. You've got to think long term. It doesn't end at the age of 16, it goes beyond that. So, really talking about anybody being high or low doesn't work for anybody, not just the autism spectrum, but across anything that we do, it doesn't work.
Take us from your lived experience, the myths, the misconceptions that you had to deal with, that society threw at you, and you had to unlearn for yourself as well.
Personally, I mean, I've been somebody who is very inward looking. So I don't tend to look outside for validation or look at how people react to things. I'm very clear that this is a child who's there and who's lovingly chosen me. So I choose him right back, and we'll see what we can do with our life. But I've heard things, and things which go in terms of, is this a mental condition? It's not. You have to understand the difference between a mental condition and a neurological condition. It is a condition, it's not a disease. So you're not going to get medicines which will cure. You have people now with different disabilities who have wheelchair access, people who are blind who have braille. Similarly, people on the autism spectrum need to be given that leeway. I know of people who on the autism spectrum go to work, but they can't work under very harsh lights. So taking care of that element will bring in inclusivity. But saying that, oh, because they are autistic, they don't like this is, and first, they are not autistic. They are on the autism spectrum. They have far more things to them than autism. Uh, so if I have to list down my son, he is kind, he's gentle, he's extremely handsome, he is very giving, he's loving, he is somebody who is able to adjust to any situation in life, and he has autism. So we've got to understand that element. And the world around, I think, like this lovely song that goes, kuch to log kahenge, logon ka kaam hai kehna. So it's just, don't listen to people who haven't been in your shoes, who haven't walked that journey. The rest, and like I said before, sympathy is just not in my dictionary. So anybody who offers that, I turn a blind eye to that. So society in general has come across and said, why don't you put him through school? He's really nice, he can do it, and why don't you get him a formal education? You hear it because you say it's okay. That's why God's given you 2 years. You hear from one and remove from the other. And they could come from well-meaning places. They could just come from not understanding anything. It doesn't matter. Which is why I think for anybody who gets anybody in their family, if they get a diagnosis of autism, first you need to work on yourself more than the person who's on the autism spectrum. Don't work on them right now. First, work on yourself. First, you understand what is happening. You understand what is the pathway. You understand what is the future. You work on that. So, in terms of misconceptions, a lot. The one that really comes to my mind right now is when he was 3 years old and diagnosed, the neurologist said he will not travel the world or he will not travel anywhere, forget the world. He will just not travel. And by God's grace, he's traveled both nationally and internationally. So, diagnosis and diagnosis, what people have to say, they will say. You figure it out, not forcing or not wanting to prove a point. You're not here to prove anybody wrong or right. You see, because I love traveling. I took him with me traveling. He loved it. And if he was in pain, if he was in difficulty, if he couldn't handle things, I would not take him further because I don't need to go and tell the neurologist, see, you said this and now I did this. This is not about one upmanship. So I think that's the only possible thing that comes to my mind on a personal level, because otherwise, like I said, inward looking and looking towards what you can do and you can contribute.
So that has really worked for you and the confidence that you have built over time. And I'm thinking that the confidence and the ease that you speak with right now comes with a lot of experience and being in the journey and meeting a lot of people. For the people who are currently listening in, how do you hold space for your child while also making sure that you are comfortable and you are all right? Because sometimes we tend to make everything about the child and we forget our needs and we forget what my aspirations were, what my dreams were. Everything is on the demand of the child. How do I not go onto that end of the stick either? How do I make that balance?
That's a very good question. And if you look at the caregivers right now, they're largely mothers or women figures who are out there. And it is expected that, she leaves whatever is there and does this. And she doesn't do it out of force. Some do it by choice, some do it out of force. But whatever it is, you have to understand that you cannot pour from an empty vessel. You just can't. And like you said, that I'm speaking so confidently, and that my inner voice says, oh, am I confident? Okay, because like I say, I don't seek validation. So it comes naturally to me. But to anybody else out there, you don't need anybody's validation. This is your life. You have to lead it. Others will come as supporting roles. They are visiting faculties in your college of life. You are the principal. You are going to now decide what you want to do, and you are going to break down. So this has, it's come after 17 years. First 3 years, I've absolutely cried every single day, not knowing what to do, not understanding why sleep was impacted, not understanding why we couldn't do it the other way. And, there was this whole life plan, right? You got married, you have 3 kids, you have picket fences. That was not going to happen. How do you do this? And, how do you go about doing this? So give yourself that space. It's okay if you don't know all the answers. I mean, look at your life, even if you're a young mother and you're in your 20s. Did you even think life would work out like this? You didn't. So trust that life will work out in a better fashion. It always works out when you're calmer, and it's not easy. It's not easy. You're not going to be calm instantly. You're going to have your breakdowns. You're going to be angry. You're going to be upset. People are going to come with solutions saying, why don't you have another child? Why don't you adopt another child? It's all noise. Just identify noise, get your peace in whichever format you want, whether it's going to a psychiatrist, going to your church, temple, masjid, wherever you get peace, whether you want to talk to a friend, whether you want to talk to yourself. I used to write. So I have, like, I think the first year of this diagnosis, I would have written at least 150 odd diaries because there was so much inside me that I didn't want to go about and share with, because you would hear so many other noises. You would hear so many other voices which would confuse you. So I would write and confuse myself. By the time that you came to your last diary, you were at least in some sort of sense and you knew what was happening and the anguish was out. So get your anguish out, go out there. You require a village to also raise a neurotypical normal child. You can't raise them on your own. You can't do that. So now seek help. I do not know about the other different abilities and disabilities out there, but in the autism fraternity, it's a very close-knit group. You have many support groups, you have many parent groups, you have many therapists, you have people who work together. And why is that? Is because autism is rising. People are coming more and more into the autism spectrum. So if you've got to hold space, whereas making child, I will still go back to the first thing, is that you have to first make space for yourself. You're not going to be able to handle your child or what the child is going through, because that poor child doesn't even know what is happening. For them, that is their normal. How do you now adjust to that normal? How do you understand that is up to you. So just do that, and by you'll figure it out. There is no set formula. I wish I could tell you this is what I did with my son, but it will not work for you because your child is unique. We don't go to noisy places. We go to quiet places. We spend a lot of time on the dinner table. We're just relaxing. We're not even talking. As a household, we just talk very less because we know that there is somebody who likes to communicate non-verbally. We also communicate non-verbally. So he looks more at us, he picks up our cues. So it really depends family to family. So if you want to hold your own space, you should hold your space. And don't hit yourself if you're not. It's okay. It's okay to just go through the motions till you figure out what you want to do. And please seek help. There's a massive village out there of autism support, especially in India. Reach out to them. And that's how you will make space for yourself and for your child. And especially COVID has showed us how you can work remotely, which I do even today. So you can do that. You can continue doing what you like to do and in your terms and conditions. And it's a detour. That's all. You will get back. You will get back on the saddle. You will reach there. So just be kinder to yourself. That's it.
Yeah. So, couple of thoughts that popped up when you were talking about it, about the autism relate the spectrum and the whole community building that has happened over the years, and how fabulous it has been to watch that. And ever since I've started the podcast, it is with such pride. It's such a joy to have interacted with parents and neurodivergent people and people on the autism spectrum who have spoken about it with pride. And as someone with ADHD and as a parent with somebody who has ADHD and a learning disability, I really wish I could see that, that community building for children with learning disabilities in the same form, because I can see very clearly that because it is invisible, we'd rather like to keep it there. And it breaks my heart because the children still need the same support and help, but we don't want to acknowledge and put it out there because we'd rather hide our flaws, which we see as flaws, rather, our coping things, rather than own it and let our children be.
I think when it's invisible, right, you try to keep it as invisible, the problem. And that look across anything, whether it is health, whether it's relationships. If it's not too obvious, we hide it. Why should you? If there is something that needs addressal and where you have a chance of solving a problem, we've all seen Tare Zameen Pe. We've all seen that dyslexia is something that you can work on, and you can come to a place where they can manage with that situation. You have so many people like Abhishek Bachchan or other people who are just doing their stuff because they got help. If that's a chance, give the child that chance. There is absolutely, I have no idea. We have absolutely no hesitance in saying that we get angry, we get jealous, we get this, which are all, I think, superiorly negative to I have a learning disability. So just come forward, do that, because if this is the condition in our metros, you can just imagine what happens in the villages. So it's just have to go out there and accept it. For a long time, in fact, people had told us also, your son doesn't look autistic. So I kept asking them, what does, somebody on the autism spectrum look like? Do they have two horns and they fly some? They just look how they are, and they're just human beings. It's almost what we would hear years ago saying, right? That you don't look South Indian, you look North Indian. These are all just biases.
Yeah.
And biases don't help anybody grow. So yeah, I really wish that the learning disability community and the ADHD community just come but I'm happy that at least the ADHD community is coming together. You have people who are going there, you have celebrities, you had Alia Bhatt recently saying that she's on the ADHD spectrum. So there's hope.
There is hope. There is always hope.
There is.
Yeah, that is, I know you said very clearly that there is no magic potion or this is what I do that you can take, but I still would like you to think about and probably say that these are three things that really helped me when my child was in a certain situation, or these are probably certain solutions or the kind of responses or strategies that you have been able to take up that helped you, just for people who are going through this journey and say, oh, is that even possible? Because they're at the start and you've gone far ahead.
I think, when you said that, the first thing that came into mind is there are a lot of therapies out there. You have OT, you have speech, you have behavior. Take your child there, see if that works for you. One size will not fit all. For us, that didn't work. What worked for us is RDI, which is relationship development interchange. which really calmed us down as a family. We worked on picture enabled communication systems. We worked on building the blocks. And in a matter of 2 years, we saw a very, very different child. So that worked for us, where we worked on just calming down, understanding that the first basic building blocks were missing. We built that, and we got somebody who was far more responsive to us.
Could you please elaborate on RDI? Because this is something that has not been spoken about till date, and it would be really nice to understand that.
Sure. We went through the usual juggernaut of going from one therapist to the other therapist to the other therapist. We would go from therapies ranging from Borivali to Andheri to Chembur and back. So we've literally gone all across Bombay doing that. And that we said that, of course, there was improvement. I'm not saying therapies don't improve you, they do. But after a time, we felt, what is happening? Because also, please understand, anybody on the autism spectrum, they will improve. Everybody, when you work on any person, whether they are on the autism spectrum or not, they improve. So if you don't see that improvement, it's time for you to start thinking what is not working. And that's something that we found out, saying, of course, there's been progress, there's been help, but it's been stagnant. What is happening? And I think by the time that we reached there, we were very tired. Going through work, going through this, going through that. It was just chaotic. And that's when we came across RDI. RDI really talks about what is your relationship with your child. Have you formed the basis of your relationship? So, a child, when they're very small, even like 5, 6 months old, they try to imitate their parents. That is what is missing mostly in children who are on the autism spectrum. Something that you don't catch very easily. You say, you don't really come and see your child and say, oh, are they copying me? Are they not copying me? You don't really observe that. But that is a missing block. And when we began doing that with our son, we noticed that, oh, yeah, that was missing, and we worked on that. So I think, calmed us down. We were no longer reading storybooks to him. Like, I think every night I would read storybooks saying that now, if he hears me speaking, he's going to start speaking. To just sitting with him and saying, oh, that's a nice book. And he also looking, we looking, and that's it. There wasn't any expectation, anything. We were just enjoying the moment. We would go on walks and I would say, hey, this is a tree, this is a plant, this is green, this is blue. And it's so, when we began RDI, I understood how difficult that must be for the child, because he just wants to enjoy the weather. He just wants to enjoy the walk. But here there's this mad woman who's constantly saying, this is green, this is blue, this is red. We stopped that because we said it's okay. And we began doing our own things. And over a period of time, our son just learned the colors, because he learned that this was green in a very natural way. Then he would say, what is this? And I would say, this is green. This is green. This is a green leaf. So that identification came naturally more than forcing. It takes a lot of work on yourself to do RDI. RDI is not about the child, it's about the parent. It's about the relationship that you have with your child. So the child does not come for the therapy. You go once a week, you meet your RDI counselor, they discuss with you steps that you can do. You have to take out videos of the work that you do with your child, whether it is them copying you, whether that is you putting your blocks together, whether it's about your reading time or your walk, because that's when you kind of, for the first time, when you see yourself on screen, you realize how crazy you are of, not really understanding this is just a child who wants to learn from you, and you can just be yourself and teach them that. And that really built us. And gradually, as you moved through RDI, we also came across something called as PECS, which is Picture Enabled Communication System. That worked for us a lot. The more we showed pictures, and we told him, don't say the word, because what we understood and is that to speak, to take out those words was very difficult for our son. It would hurt his neurological system. So why make him do that? Instead of that, why don't I give him pictures and he can still communicate? An amazing thing happened is that he began using pictures and then he began talking, because that is how the human system is built. When you're not under great pressure, you perform. You're given the tools and you can perform. So that really helped us. And it was exhausting because you had to take pictures of everything. Today, you have your cell phones and you can just click and go. But if you're talking 17 years ago, we took a picture, we took a printout, we got it laminated, but we had a lot of those pictures and everything was picture enabled communication system, which then worked for him. And that is something that helped him. And I think the third thing that helped us a lot is taking him out of school. Because if you're in an environment which is constantly, yeah, it's just too demanding. And there was one amazing person on the autism spectrum. He is now 35 and working in a very good organization, in an IT organization. And he said, when I was in school, it was pins and needles pricking my body. It's that painful. So just hearing him, I said, oh my God, is that what my child feels? Because that is why he would eat his badge, because that calms you down. So this fellow would often also chew things. So he would chew chalks, chew pencils, and people said he was crazy. He's like, how do I calm myself? Because these are, it's all pricking. And then once his family understood and they figured out how, and of course now he's an IT professional. So I think these three things worked for us: RDI, PECs, and the fact that we took him out of school and we said, let's figure out how you learn. Let's all learn together. I'm still learning with him. And at times he rolls his eyes now at me, because saying, oh, you haven't figured this out. He is very, very gifted with technology. So we get any new tech and he just finishes it. He opens it and I'm like, oh, I don't know how to do this, can you help me? And he's like, oh my God, it's just a phone, why can't you just start it? So it's come to that level, and then we laugh it out. We still do that. Humor should never, Laughter should never go out of the equation. We still laugh. I mean, I tell him, oh, I can roll my eyes because, I have done this for so many years. So don't give it back to me. And then there is that kind of, so I think overall it's that really for us, it's RDI, PECs, taking out of school and just keeping the humor alive, not taking anything too seriously.
Yeah, when you said Pex, I'm just wondering. Last week, Zachary had this project where he had to build a house, basis their discussion, and so we went into building mode, right? So, and Thomas was not home, so we were all sitting. My nanny's son, he's very good with wood. Zachary and me, and we thought we had a great evening, right? And I'm like, yeah, we had so much fun. We were talking all the way, we were doing everything, and I'm showing the video to Thomas. And in that, I heard myself, and I'm like, I thought it was a very good evening. And Zachary, did you think that I was screaming? Because it sounds like I was shouting at you, right? And had I not seen that video, there was no way on earth that I would have realized that, dude, you are screaming for no reason, or you sound like you're angry. But in my head, I was just explaining something to him.
Yeah.
Ah, God, it was such an awful but
A very
experience
self-reflecting thing, yes, because we
moment.
hardly really, yeah,
Yeah,
true,
yeah.
true,
I
very true.
think all of parenting is just that, right? It just keeps showing you the mirror and you have to like, oh, cringe at yourself.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
You brought up how the sunflower, the hidden disability sunflower, is such a wonderful topic that has come up, and how I was in a hotel in Dubai, and even there they had like, if as soon as I walked in and it was on the desk, and they said, if you have a hidden disability, please. Of course, I didn't pick it up because now I have learned so well to manage myself. I don't need it anymore. But I was like, so happy to see this here, and I have never seen this as I walk into a hotel across and in India. Can you help us understand what this idea is, so that the listeners can actually pick up the sunflower whenever they do see it?
Sure. So this is what we got from the Dubai airport. It's just coincidental that you spoke about Dubai.
Yeah.
This is how a sunflower lanyard looks. And sunflower, by its virtue, and if you can see, this is a very pleasant color. It doesn't hit your eye. But if somebody is wearing this from a distance, you can still see it. It's quite visible. So though it's pleasant, it's visible. And sunflower really talks about potential. A sunflower opens to sun. So if you give the right opportunities, the right care, every child can blossom. And that's something that I found very, very insightful. And this program actually began in Dubai. And from Dubai, it was then taken to different parts of the world. In our experience, we've seen this in Dubai and we've seen it in London, where they identify you and within a minute you're in. You're not even. So Heathrow typically takes anywhere between half an hour to 45 minutes to an hour. But if they see you with that sunflower lanyard, it's precisely 5 minutes that you get through immigration, you get through anything. Similarly in Dubai, but that was not the case in other countries. Other countries are still catching up, even outside India. In India, this began off with the Bangalore airport, and they have done a fabulous job out there. In Bangalore, you have a lovely group. You have a WhatsApp group where you can send your ticket and you can say you're traveling with a differently able person. A person comes to pick you up from the time you get off your car. They come to pick you there and then you're through. You don't have to worry about anything, whether it is checking in, going to security, going out there. You're just taken through a channel. The person is throughout with you. And there is great awareness. There's great understanding of what is there. This was also then taken up by Hyderabad and by Delhi. I haven't experienced Hyderabad, but what I've experienced in Delhi is complete apathy. It was more about, it is not an airline thing, it's more of an airport thing. So you please go to the airport people. So, if through this podcast I could urge them that it's not an airport and an airline thing, it's a human thing, it's an inclusion thing, it's a sunflower lanyard. So you've got to understand it and you've got to train people. You cannot say that, why aren't you trained? They have to take, if it's the airport authority initiative, they have to train the airline people. They don't understand it. So for anybody in India who's traveling to Delhi, I'd recommend just tell them you want a wheelchair, and that works faster than sitting and explaining what the sunflower lanyard means, what it is. It doesn't work out. Bangalore, just say sunflower lanyard, you're through. Uh, in Hyderabad, also, I hear it's doing well. So, this program is absolutely important for anybody who is on the autism spectrum or anybody who has a hidden disability, because you don't have to wait in lines, you don't have to wait in queues, you can just go through.
I am thinking, as most Indian men do, because about the misuse of the laws that are meant to protect some, and how does it feel? What if people try to skip the lines by just wearing
So
one
you're
of the
given that if you have a UDID card. A UDID card is a unique disability identification card, which the government gives you. You've got to have that. And you're right, you see many people in wheelchair who can actually walk around. That does happen. But for getting the sunflower lanyard, you need to have your UDID card. Or it has to be obvious that this person is going through something, then they let you go. Otherwise, you need a UDID card. So you can prevent it that way.
Understood. We'd rather have people, because tomorrow you always have to explain and you'll be like, वो क्यों चाह रहा है? मैं क्यों नहीं चाह रही? That's the
True,
biggest fight
true,
that you have. Yeah.
true.
And have you thought about something? Because you also work in communications and you've also worked, in purpose-driven branding and all of that. And from signages to making, how is it that we can create more inclusive spaces and use communication as a tool, just like this simple band makes so much of a difference? Because even if a bus driver sees you, they know that there is a challenge and they will stop for you, right? And how do we make that more visible or just more popular?
I think, and this did happen to us in London, because a bus which was just going stopped because he saw our son with the sunflower lanyard. And I said, okay, we can just enter here. We were just walking towards the bus stop. He said, no, no, he can enter. You walk to the bus stop. I said, no, no, you know, I have to be with him, so I'll come with him. But that's the level of awareness that is there. What corporates can do is largely spread awareness. And I've seen a lot of corporates now having seminars, talking about it. The first step will be to talk about it. If you don't acknowledge something, you're not going to do anything about it. If you start talking about it, acknowledge it, understand it, there are now quiet rooms that are being built. Bangalore Airport is a shining example. You have a quiet room there, you have a sensory room there, you have all of that. Now, corporates, and honestly, like you're saying about the corporate world, it's not going to be a choice anymore. It's going to be what you need to do, because more and more people are now being identified as being on the autism spectrum, on the ADHD spectrum. You don't come to a stage where it's now forced on you. This is a large part of the working force, which is very diligent, can do a lot of good things, can really contribute. And that's what every organization wants, right? Contribution. They can do that, but they will do it differently. And if we don't understand that basis that we put out there, you as a corporate are going to lose out. So in communication especially, if you're going to use diversity and inclusion as something that you want to talk about, be honest about it, be truthful about it. Don't do it as one more must have or something that just looks good, because people are going to see through it. You're going to lose the brand equity you have earned over the years. And you have schemes for mothers who are coming back to work, where if they've taken a break because they've had a child who is differently able, they've understood, they've set up a system and they want to come back. Don't make it a one off thing, make it a continuous program. And communications can help there because they spread the word. Communication is really pivotal. So if you look at Selena Gomez and her Rare Beauty, the product just went viral and it went out there because she communicated in that style. That's where communication took center stage. That, I have products which are for everybody. You're good as you are. You are unique the way you are, and we are all unique. I mean, especially for the differently abled, you usually use their thumb because their signatures can be copied. So if we have such unique thumb impressions, why are we even copying each other? It's just beyond. We spend our entire life wanting to be unique, but we really want to fit in. So, the entire essence of this podcast about being, the right, just your normal misfit is actually apt, because we just want to be unique, but we want to fit in. So it's not going to be about fitting in anymore. It's going to be about you bringing your unique skills and communication, helping build your brand further, saying that you're not doing inclusion as a must have or a tick or something in your box, but something that you believe in. So that is how, and we've seen, like I said, about Selena, and there are so many other brands which have connected with people because they come from a place of empathy. They come from a place of clear communication. They come from a place of, I understand what you're going through. And that is what every brand out there will have to do. And in PR, we have this whole term about do it consistently. PR will not build your brand image if you do it for 1 month and leave it. You have to do it consistently over a period of time. And that's how you build inclusion. Inclusion is not going to be a tokenism thing or something that you just do, on World Autism Day, you make everybody wear blue and that's it. It's just going to be a way of life and how you do work.
I always go back to our constitution. There's this very famous conversation where they wanted to give 30% to women, right? Because a gender neutral space, and we should be inclusive and women should be present. And there was this conversation around bringing women on the table and putting 30% of compulsory presence of women. But the women said, no, the India that we are building will be amazing. And these are the goals that we have put for ourselves. And we know that in free India, there will be space for us. And we know where that has gone. We know that today, when we see the legislation or we look at women in power, we know how it is still, it's tokenism to some extent. And had we had that 30% put in there, probably. I cannot speak for. I'm just wondering, we talk about DEI, but often we are still fighting for just gender. We haven't even reached, you know, diversity in the real sense. We have not, I don't have a colleague, or we don't know people on the spectrum who are working with us and who can match up. Whether we can provide a quiet space for them when things get, it's a big ask. Even if I put on the other
Of
side,
course, of
it's
course.
expensive. You want a quiet room, for the lights could be too harsh, the spaces could be too loud, there has to be a lift. And only when CBSE and all these state boards have made it compulsory that there has to be ramps, there has to be lifts, do we do things. So, do you really think we can become inclusive unless the hammer comes down on our corporates?
That's a very valid question. And what you rightly said about women is quite heartbreaking, but we've also evolved. Like I said, there is remote working. You can work literally from anywhere. So if you can't do that in your offices, give them the leeway of working from home for 4 days and come once a day to the office. If you can't build ramps, and also, like I said, if you don't adapt now, you'll be forced to,
Yeah.
because there's a larger workforce that you're letting go Somebody who does not like coffee breaks, your cigarette breaks, and does not like wasting time and is very, very productive. You are letting them go off for somebody who fits into your boxes but is lesser productive. Having said that, sometimes one does think, will the neurotypical segment just rise up and say, we want reservations because everybody else is fighting for reservations and they're not getting that. So there is that issue, but you must understand that people who are differently abled have their own conditions and they have to deal with that. Their neurological systems don't allow them to take so much of crowd, so much of, it's not something they're pretending to. For example, a blind person uses braille not because they have to prove you a point because they really can't see. So there has to be that sensitivity that comes in. You often hear people say, we're talking about women and equal rights, and you largely have urban women fighting for it, who actually get more rights than the women in rural areas. In rural areas, it's still a concern. So we really can't go in silos and ask for equality. We'll ask for equality everywhere. And will this happen? You have the Chief Justice of India who has two differently abled children and both girls, and he's fighting for it. He's saying that there has to be honor, there has to be some way that they can live dignifiedly, because literally, if you look at any other country outside, which is a developed country, they take care. They take care of their population that is differently able. You cannot immigrate out of any country if you have a differently able child, because the immigrating country says that I'll have to take care of that child. If that's the kind of responsibility they take on, you'll have to take it on. Will it happen? We are a 1.4 billion population country. Like I said, the neurotypicals are not getting that kind of health support. We're talking about women, we're talking about people who have wheelchairs. If you look at our trains, a person with wheelchair cannot get into the train even today, cannot do those things. So we have a long way to go, but like I said, we've come a long way. I do remember the complete helplessness that I felt 17 years ago, the confusion that I felt even 13 years ago. I would feel that. I don't feel that now. I feel that now there are groups coming together, there are people working for solutions, and we can't leave everything to the government. Certain things the government can help you. They have come up with the Nirmaya health insurance. You can use that. Your therapies are covered under that. So find more information about that, apply for that. You can get your therapies covered through that. They've done that. They're giving you certain concessions in your tax. So they are doing that. The rest, as citizens of the country, get together and be that change.
I put you on the spot with my thought ramble. It's my brain saying, yeah, there is so much hope, and there's this piece that is so hopeful, and we know that we will make the change. And there's this piece that is extremely cynical, and we'll say that how far, we are fighting for just basic roads right now,
Absolutely.
and so, ramps and streets where elderly
Absolutely.
can just climb and walk safely. When does that happen? So, yes.
No,
Yeah.
absolutely. And you're right. The key will be in balance. You'll have to, like what you said, and that made me think is, what if people just misuse the sunflower lanyard and walk? It could happen. So
Yes.
bring in a layer, give them UDID. If they don't have UDID, they can't use that. So it's about bringing in layers. And it's good to be, you know, cynically optimistic. It's good to be there and say, okay, this can work, but let's see how, we can take care of the negative things also.
Actually thinking I'd rather 20 people misuse that so that the 10 people who are struggling go past, right? But
Absolutely.
yeah, because they really need the space, and airports can be one of the most challenging places for children and people on the spectrum and with invisible disabilities. The noise, the lines, the touching, the pushing, the pulling for the just the tray. Oh, it could be a big
True.
struggle.
True.
Are there any specific systems that you have seen work that you recommend? And if you could recommend to schools or workspaces today, is there something that you can think of and suggest with your
We really
experience?
push schools for being inclusive. Let's push them only if they can do it. When you push somebody because of a norm, they take it up because of a norm and they don't do a good job out of it. But if you're an educational institute that truly believes in inclusivity, there are very few changes that you need to make. You don't need to make a lot of changes. You can still have 60 students in your class, 40 students in your class. But if there is that one child who has some different ability, give him a different classroom. It's just one classroom that you need to make space for, or you keep that child with the less noisier children, even if you don't need to have a different classroom, because safety gets affected when you're just alone. So if you're in numbers, your safety is higher. Ensure that the child at least sits with somebody who's quieter, somebody who's more peaceful, somebody who will be able to. Not all children are noisy, not all children are boisterous, not all children want to rag the other child. There are some who have great empathy, there are some who have great connectivity. As a school, identify those children, make them buddies. We have that at work, right? When you join a new place, you say, now I'm assigning a buddy to you so that you can figure out. So assign that to that child. Have something called as a shadow teacher. Provide for that, give that, so that if the child needs any extra help, this teacher can provide. Otherwise, let the child just bloom. This child has great capacity to bloom. Let them bloom in their own space and time. So schools can literally start as simple as we identified what the issue is, we identify what the stressors are. This can even be for an ADHD person who likes to, run around and pace around 10 times. Make a nice white chalk line for them to walk outside. They'll just walk there 100 times and come back. They're not disturbing anybody. So you can figure out simple steps. You don't need fancy steps. You don't need great steps. And once you start this inclusion in school, start talking about it. Talk about the fact that this is a neurological condition. Don't call this general labeling that you're mad. I find neurotypicals mostly to be mad. So, this is there's nothing called as mad. There's nothing. I mean, please understand the words that you use. You're an educator, so educate properly and tell what it is, how we can help. A system that starts that young, you will have a nation that builds into somebody who cares for each other. So you've got to start there. And then when you come to the workforce, it's all about deliverables. It's all, I'm somebody who's an entrepreneur. I have a team. I expect them to deliver. I don't expect anything else. Now, if you work from your house, from a cafe, we are remote working. Wherever you work, none of my business as long as deliverables are met. So, see how you can take this. You need to train the differently abled, get them a different training, figure out what they can do. There was this young man that I met in Bangalore, and who was on a wheelchair and had a disability of his hands. And he got a job in a telecall center. His one hand was fine, the other was not. But he had to dial as much as 3,000 calls a day. Now, when you have to dial with a hand that is not really as good as the other, it gets difficult. But the organization figured it out and they gave him the earpiece. You have a earpiece, you have a system, you can still call with the press of a button. That's what organizations need to think. He was given the best employer in a row for 3 years because he doesn't take breaks. He knows how important this chance is. He knows how important this job is. So when you give a differently abled person a chance, they understand the gravitas of it. They understand the importance of it. If you can make a few corrections here, it's okay. Some of them, like I said, a few people who are on the spectrum and who are working, they do wear their and go to work because they can't take light. So you don't have to even take care of the lighting. They'll take care. They'll figure out. They'll wear dark glasses, but understand that that person is wearing dark glasses not to be cool or to have arrived, but it's hurting their eyes. So just organization just need to be sensitive about the part, see if they can do the job, judge nothing. But like you said, I mean, you're not taking women for leadership roles because you're saying she's a woman and she's going to get married, she's going to have childbirth, and it's going to affect your. So if you have that bias in the first place, differently abled is a far way off. So I think in schools and in colleges and in workplaces, all you need to do is understand what is there and see what you can do within your ecosystem, because these are people who are massive contributors to whatever you do and to the economy at large.
We had Mangala Jayachandran, who was very, very, very specific about the fact that no, you don't need too much. If you have empathy, solutions will come out.
Absolutely.
And she was so adamant about it, saying that no, as long as you have the mindset, everything is solvable. And it's not an expensive solution, it's just a mindset problem. Which also brings me back to certain times that we ourselves are more limiting than the person with the disability, where we decide for them what they can or cannot do rather than ask them or give them a chance to try. So, or we think that they're geniuses because, you have these mindsets that if you're on the autism spectrum, then
Einstein.
you're an Einstein. You're gonna, crack world poverty or something like that.
True.
How do you balance these mindset issues more than anything
Like when you were
else?
saying right now, I was thinking, yes, we limit them so much. And the other end, we push them so much because we want them to fit into a box. We want them to fit into something. We push them to such an extent that they break down, or we don't push them to such an extent that they become lazy. Now, you have to figure out, which is just takes back my first point. The work is not on them, the work is on yourself. You have to work on it. You have to see, okay, just sit back and think of your own life, right? Even if you're in your 20s, think about how when your parent pushed you for a certain thing, you actually excelled in that, and then you thanked them. How when they took a step back, you were relieved. I think the basic essence is a calm mind. It's a calm mind and lots of empathy, saying that would you make somebody who has an amputated leg, would you make them run a marathon? You wouldn't. Then, if there's somebody with a neurological disorder, would you make them do this? You wouldn't. The answers are actually very simple and they're out there. We complex it because we need to show a perfect picture, right, to the world. It's all about the world, and when you die, you realize nobody really cared. So, that is the irony of it all. There is, you are the world. You have to do what you have to do and do it properly. So, it's truly, it is your limiting this. If you work on that and you realize that, let me see, like my dad said, like I put you across to every possible sport, every possible art form, and you chose yours. That's all you have to do. Your job as a parent, as a caregiver, as an educator, as an employer is to give those opportunities. Then see who makes what out of it. It is not very difficult. It's not very complex. It's what you do. It's just that it will not fit into your picture of perceived reality. You'll have to face what is in front of you and just do it. So it really, yes, you're absolutely right. It's not about them, it's more about you.
You mentioned death, and so I come to the classic question, what after us? Is this something that you sit
Of
with?
course, I don't think not just me, but any other parent who's out there. Half your journey is in understanding your child, and then you've understood your child, and we're so comfortable. Right now, I think our son and us are in a very extremely comfortable position where we understand each other's movements. We've come to that level. And that thought just suddenly comes up that what after you? Who's going to understand the unsaid word? Who's going to understand that this is a human being, that this is somebody with emotion, somebody with a great mind, somebody with lots of love and affection? And even basic questions like, how are you going to protect this child? How are you going to protect this young adult in terms of just your basic safety? What if somebody does not harm this person? How can they be? There is a rise in sexual abuse across. You think that more for the differently abled because you're like, this person would not even know what's happening to them because they're just that simple and just that trusting. How do you do that? There's also the financial aspect that you think you could make as much as you want. Somebody comes and makes them sign or puts their thumb, it's all gone. And this has happened. We've seen this happening, especially in the autism fraternity, where parents have made a lot, had an unexpected death, and they have put the 40-year-old child into some ashram somewhere, and the family has taken the whole money. So, the first thing that you'll have to do is it all starts with acceptance. This is the reality. This is how it is. How are you going to face it? First, please have a will in place. Oh, I don't want to have a will, I'm just in my 30s and nothing is going to happen. You'll die tomorrow, you'll have a car accident. What happens? Do that will. It's not going to take you too long. You're very clear of what you want to put. Get a lawyer, pay the money, do the will. Second, make a trust. So in that trust, you have trustees who are there, people that you depend on, which could be your immediate family, which could be a third party. You have many other third parties who come as trustees. They take certain amount of money and they ensure the funds are okay. Start off with these two things. The third thing, which we have gone ahead and action, is a residential living. We are moving to something called as the Together community, which is at Hosur at Tamil Nadu. And it is a community for 40 differently abled children, largely on the autism spectrum, but with different abilities out there. And we are currently 36 of us. So we have four more, and you have parents coming from US, from Singapore, from different parts of India who realize that you have to find a residential that is close to what you envision, what you understand is something that your child could be comfortable in. So at Together Foundation, what we have at our Together community, you can go to work, you have a workplace, you have a place that you stay in your studio apartment, you have caregivers who can support you, you have a swimming pool, you have a gym, you have good amount of area to walk around. And as parents, we stay close by. So your parents are also there for you. You're not just left and you've disappeared from there. You're still there, you still have that ecosystem, you're just growing and getting to be more independent. So it really depends on what you really want to do, but first please make that will and make that trust. Residential is a different thing. There are multiple residential facilities which have come up, especially for those on the autism spectrum, because like I said, the community just said enough, we're going to do something about it. So where you have Arunima at Dehradun, which is run by a sister of a young man who's on the autism spectrum. You have our Together community, which is by a mother who has two daughters on the autism spectrum. You have these amazing, inspiring individuals coming up who are there, and then families support that initiative, and it becomes a parent run thing. And that, I think, is something you'll have to look at. You'll have to look at a parent run thing because, like we've discussed through this podcast, empathy is important. You're not going to get that if it is
Yeah.
just professionally run. So make it a nice mix of professionally and personally run. So, yes, after us is a will, a trust, and residential living. And of course, if they can live independently, please let them do that. Just secure their future with a will and trust. It's not that they can't live independently. Of course they can. And if they can, and if they need some help, ensure that that help is nearby and have a clear line of what happens after you. And it's very painful. I remember when drawing up our own will and trust, my father and my mother both were like, "We are still alive. Why are you doing this?" So I said, "Well, I'm doing it to ensure that no matter who's not alive, this boy is okay at the end of it." So, yeah, I think many decisions that you take as a parent will be difficult, will be what others will not understand, will be emotionally taxing, but you've got to take it because there's somebody depending on you 100%. I mean, my son has, I think, massive trust in us to do whatever it takes. So you're not going to let down that trust.
That was very, very moving. And as a single parent, a big part of my life was what if something happened to me? Where would my son turn to? And I know that continues to be a fear for a lot many single parents and also parents who know that. My dear friend who spoke to me on the podcast, she said, I know that my parents made this money and I was independent. And I know I have to make this money till the end, not of just my life, but Rose's life. And it broke my heart to think that to some extent, when she said that this is one of her biggest fears, that how long will she continue to earn and to make sure that he's financially stable. And now you've added another layer of fear where you say that one signature is enough to make that go away.
And as practical things, these are just there. The world is here to fill you up with fear. Take none of it. Yeah,
Take the life out
just
of you.
don't, just go that these are the facts. I'll face it. I'll do it. And life
Yeah,
actually is, yeah,
that's
and
the
it's
best.
not really that bad because I think I was having this discussion with my husband. I said, I do not, with absolute honesty, I do not think that I am this, there's no better PR professional than me. There isn't. I mean, I think there are many, there are just many, many more better. But then what do I attribute my success to? Is my son. So I think it is, what you say in Marathi, when somebody comes and your life changes. So Paigun is basically when the wife enters the house and entire thing of the house changes. I think my son's Paigun is very good for me. I'm not brilliantly, just the most brilliant thing ever to have happened in the world of PR. I'm not. But if I do well, it's because there is a bigger force than us. There's no two ways about it. Your job is to just work. Your job is work as much as you can. I think our favorite song is Don't Worry, Be Happy, because in every life you have some trouble. If you worry, you make it double. And that is something that is just ingrained into him. I think it's his favorite song. And I've taken that as now as my favorite because I have worried. It's not like I have not worried. I have worried, I have cried. It didn't change my life. But when I worked towards that, when I identified those things, it worked. So have no fear. If you have a differently able child, God will bless you with enough and more where, it'll all be okay. It'll just be okay. And I think sometimes we also laugh about it, my husband and I, saying that, hey, it's okay, we have life insurance. That's okay, it'll take care of him somewhere. And some people think it's morbid, but it's not. It's life. As much as life is a truth, death is a truth. So just ensure that these wonderful, wonderful beings, I think every single day shows me, whenever he gets up with a smile, showing that I don't understand this world. I don't communicate like this world, but I have got up and I'm facing. What's your excuse? I have none. So I stand up every single time, and I'm now at that age where perimenopause also sets in. I'm tired, I'm this, and then I look at him and say, damn it. He's again got up smiling, and I'm just going to do it. So you just do it because you have a constant inspiration in your house. You don't need to look beyond. So it's all going to be good. Yeah.
This has been absolutely, absolutely wonderfully enriching, Rashmi. It's been an absolute joy to have you and to understand your journey and the lessons that you have shared. I have spoken to quite a few, and at some point, you think that, oh, you've read the books, you've understood. The lived experience is so different. It is so eye opening. And that's why I love doing these conversations so regularly, because it just gives me so much perspective and so much inspiration that like you said, you have inspiration in your home. And for me, I love meeting women who just walk the talk. And thank you for being one of
Thank
them.
you. May this grow and may this really, really do well, because yours is a lived experience. You have lived it and you are doing something out of it, which is absolutely admirable. You have my greatest respect. Thank you.
Thank you so much for saying that.
Thank you
Yes.
so much.
And yeah, together we make a more inclusive
Absolutely.
world. Thank you
Thank you.
so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rashmi.
All
Thank you
right.
so much.
Okay.
Today with us was Rashmi talking about autism and the challenges of invisible disabilities. What stood out for me was the real life experiences and learnings and the ability to say, I create my world and I define my boundaries and I define my space so that my child can thrive. And as parents, I think that is one of the biggest lessons that we can get from peers, that we don't have to keep fitting in. We don't have to keep pushing and nudging and fighting things. And we can create our own spaces. We can create happy, wonderful, calm spaces where you and I can thrive. And inclusion is not a campaign. It is not a one day, it's not a sprint, it's a campaign and it's a commitment. And if you are on the spectrum, I hope you find a lot of inspiration from Rashmi's conversation. If you're a parent raising somebody on the spectrum and wondering what next, I hope Rashmi's community is a great place for you to find a safe home and for your child. And if you are somebody who's raising a child on the spectrum and you're wondering about what next, I hope you find a community like Rashmi's and you can find a safe space, just like these parents have created one for their children. And have a good day. And I hope you're as inspired and as touched as I am as I end this conversation. Thank you for listening to Just Your Normal Misfit. Don't forget to follow, share, and stay tuned for more conversations on neurodiversity, inclusion, and the many ways where we can build a kinder world together. Good day.